About 1 month ago, I purchased an iPhone 15 Pro Max. As a serial upgrader, I already had an iPhone 14 Pro, so I was pretty sure that the differences were going to be fairly marginal. But it turns out that there were 4 things that really caught my eye when I was using this phone for the past month. Let's get into it. Okay, first of all, let's go over the body. I think the body is actually substantially different, even though it does look the same. So first of all, there is the material change. Apple has been advertising this and pumping this up on their keynotes, is now titanium instead of whatever it was before. Essentially, it has a better strength to weight ratio for material wise, so they can make the same device, but is now lighter than it was before. Let's look at a chart of historical weights of the iPhones. On this chart, you can see that iPhones have generally been getting heavier and heavier over time, up until the iPhone 14. And this little drop off here is the iPhone 15, thanks to the titanium. And you can see that it's the lightest it's been in maybe 4 or 5 years or so. And that's pretty nice. I think you can really feel the difference. So that's the first part of the body. The second part, not talked about as much, is that the edges are way better. Yeah, it's going to be hard to see, even on camera here. But I promise you, this makes a huge difference. So this generally looks like the iPhone 12 to 14 design, which had very sharp edges. Now, the thing about edges is that they are good to a point, because edges are useful when it comes to ergonomics and holding something. You can see that when you have an edge, it's going to dig into your hand a bit, and that increases the surface area, that contact surface area, which increases the static friction, and basically it feels grippier in hand. So it feels more confident. You're less likely to drop it. It's a nice feeling. You can just kind of intuitively feel that. However, if the edges are too sharp, that same action begins to hurt. And that's where the 12 to 14 was for me. So the fact that they've done just enough of softening of the edge to make this comfortable makes a huge difference. It makes a difference every second that I'm holding this thing in my hand. So I'm a big fan of that. A good real-world example of an edge impacting usability here is when you're doing the pinky easel kind of grip, which I think almost everyone does at some point. You can see that's not just the side of the bottom that's hitting my finger. I usually end up angling it, so it's really a single edge. And when you have a single edge and all the weight of a device, as light as it is, going into your finger, that can make a really big difference. On the 14, it took very little time for this to become so uncomfortable I would change grips, but on the 15, it's pretty comfortable. I rarely ever get tired of this, and if I do, it's because I really should just be changing positions anyways, because I've been like reading Reddit for 10 minutes straight without thinking about it. So the weight and combined with the softening of the industrial design on the edges here, I think has made a huge difference. Is potentially my favorite part of this entire device, which is interesting despite all the features that they talk about. Okay, next up, let's talk about the action button. Okay, the action button is a new feature in an old spot. Let me try and get this camera to focus on this so you can see it properly. It is right there. That's where the mute toggle used to be, and now it is a button. Let me show you how that works. Okay, here we are in the settings menu where under General and Control Center, you'll now see Action Button. If we go in there, you'll see that you can swipe across and pick different things that the Action Button would then trigger, which is pretty cool. Silent mode, focus, camera, flashlight, a couple different other things. You can see some things also have configuration. So if I pop open the camera, maybe I want to go to straight to videos instead of photos. Pretty cool. Also, I think this is some of the most beautiful and over-the-top UI design I've seen in iOS in a while, and I'm a big fan of that. Hope they can do more of this stuff. So these are all cool options, but the thing that I really love is that if you keep going near the end, third from the end is shortcut. You might not know what shortcuts are. Most people don't. Let me do a quick demo of what shortcuts are. So if you go into Spotlight and you just type in shortcuts, you will find the Shortcuts app. The Shortcuts app has a gallery of different things you can do, but essentially it lets you kind of program different things completely custom. So for any of your apps, they all have exposed functionality within shortcuts as well, whether you want to play some specific song, or in my case, for my shortcuts, I have things like I can precondition my car, or I can open my front via shortcuts. These are all things I can do within the app, but I can just skip opening the app and just do them straight away from a place like here. So the fact that I can expose this to the action button is awesome. Let me show you what that looks like too. Okay, here we are on the home screen. Let's trigger the action button right here. And for me, it opens up a shortcut menu of stuff from my car, ChatGPT, opening a camera. I don't want too long of a list of things, but I use this stuff all the time. So it's nice to have a hardware access point for that stuff. What it's doing is just showing everything that's in this folder, default actions that I've made right here, Frank, blah, blah, blah. But the interesting thing here is I've made this even more complicated by finding shortcuts online. So inside the action button, which is what I'm actually triggering, it's checking what focus mode I'm in. If I'm not in any kind of focus mode, it's going to run the folders. But if I'm in photography, for example, you can see that's going to run the camera. Let me show you what that's like. So now I'm in photography mode, and if I press that, immediately to the camera, which is cool if I'm on a photo walk and I just want a hardware button to immediately trigger the camera. I think that's pretty rad. I'm just going to flip back out, and now I'm in normal again. And now if I press that, back to showing the menu. So I can configure different things based on my focus mode too. Pretty sweet. So when you get down to it, even though you have a lot of these different default options, the shortcut one gives you kind of infinite possibilities to mess with other apps that you already have and make it far more customizable for your specific situation. I really, really dig this as a new feature. All right, so functionally, I love this thing. I think it's a great idea. It's executed really well, especially thanks to shortcuts. But I do have one major complaint with this thing. Let me show you what that is. So if I'm going to hold this up right here, you can see the action button here. I can't reach it. This is my normal phone grip, okay? And this is me trying to reach the action button, and I physically cannot. What I end up doing to reach the action button is I end up scrambling my hand up, hitting the button, then trying to scramble back down, which is harder, by the way. And now I've triggered the button. Or I end up having to use my other hand to bring up and then press that button instead. It is so high up there. I gotta tell you, I'm not sure I really understand the reason for it being in this spot. It's in the mute toggle old spot, but that was a button I used really a couple times a year, extremely low frequency. Whereas the action button, I'll use multiple times a day. And in terms of design here, if something is meant to be used really frequently, you would probably consider making it much more accessible as well. Otherwise it becomes frustrating to use. And the mute toggle versus the action button are completely different things. So why would you put that in the same spot? I don't really understand. The funny thing is, Apple's software design reflects this kind of sensibility really well. When you look at Apple Maps or Safari, their key UI elements have been moved to the bottom of the device so you can actually reach it with your thumb really easily. And the equivalent on a hardware level would be somewhere in the middle where your thumb or your opposite fingers would already be. Like, on the actual power switch here, right below in this empty space, that might be a great spot for an action button, except it is over here. This kind of drives me crazy because I really like this thing and it is actually also hard to use. So my verdict on this is it's a great idea. It is executed really well, except for the positioning. And I hope in further iterations of the iPhone, they just move the button somewhere easier to hit. Okay, next up, let's talk about the camera. Okay, the camera. So here's the thing. I was planning out how to do this section, and it's basically spiraled into 10 minutes at least on its own because it is so dang complicated at this point. So what I'm going to do is just tell you the quick overview of what's different, and then I'm going to save the rest of the camera stuff for later because as multiple lenses, they talk about virtual lenses, there's megapixel differences with the different sensors, and this despite the sensors and the lenses being the same as the last generation, but the processor being stronger, it's a whole thing that I need diagrams and charts for. So I'm not going to do that here. So here's the trim version of talking about the iPhone 15 Pro Max's camera. First of all, if you have the Pro Max, you're getting a new telephoto lens, which is at 5x, and that's the equivalent of 120 millimeters of focal length. The old one was 3x, which is about 72 millimeters of focal length. Both are good. These are more lateral moves, really. If you are a photographer, then you'd be thinking of this as a preference rather than an objective upgrade. For me, I do like the enhanced focal length. I like to shoot things maybe further away or focus tighter in on subjects. So I dig this, but I can totally understand if someone doesn't like this change. So that's a difference, not necessarily an upgrade. One thing that is an upgrade related to the telephoto lens is that the optical image stabilization is better than it used to be. So it used to stabilize just left and right and up and down, and now it also stabilizes in terms of depth. So all three axes are in effect there. Let me show you a little bit of demo footage I have with a screen recording and the output of that video. So I was pretty blown away when I did that test. I think it's cool to actually use a handheld 120 millimeter focal length and have that usable, because usually, unless you have some significant stabilization, it's going to be all over the place when you're doing that handheld. You'd normally be using a gimbal or some other thing to stabilize. Aside from that, with the camera, again, same sensors, same lenses, better processor, images are slightly better in quality, and now there are more options, which I'm honestly finding kind of confusing for most people. But if you don't want to go into that depth, you can just ignore all that detail and just keep using it as a nice point and shoot camera. And it's going to be good. These have been good for a very long time. That isn't changing at all. So that's a camera. It's better than it was. That's about it. Okay, let's talk about video for a second. The video upgrade here is that, you can shoot in Apple Log. Apple Log is kind of like what RAW photos are, but except for video. You have more file size, but you have more bit depth to work with. Also, probably more editing in your workflow as well. Log files are typically much larger. In fact, to do extended recording or higher frame rate recording in Apple Log, you need to hook up a USB hard drive to this port. So you're going to have a drive kind of hanging off or like going to your backpack or your pocket. So it complicates things. And if you want to use an external mic, then you're going to have to get some kind of splitter adapter so you can plug one thing in here, hook up a microphone, then hook up your hard drive. And the easy point and shoot properties of this start kind of fading away to me. Now, if you don't have another camera like I do, then that's cool. That can be your main camera. But for me, it doesn't feel like it's worth the hassle yet. Anyways, it can definitely improve the quality of your videos if you are serious about it, but I'm probably not going to use it much except for some selective, very short B-roll for my other videos, because I have a camera that is doing that and it's already shooting in Log. I don't have to worry about the microphone or a hard drive separate. I just record to an SD card. So still a nice addition, extremely professional addition, because I think very, very few people are going to use this, but I still think it's nice to have the option and it doesn't get in the way of anyone else who doesn't want to use it. It's buried in the settings. So overall, the full camera verdict is that it's better. I like it, but it's not, groundbreaking for me in any way. Okay, last but not least, kind of actually is the least, USB-C. Let's talk about that. Okay, so this has been a long time coming. Finally, we've gone away from the Lightning port and now we are on USB-C. And it hasn't really impacted me that much, to be honest, because most of my charging, 95% of it, is done on some kind of MagSafe. I have that on my desk here. I have that by my bedside. I have it in my car. So I'm mostly using that. MagSafe charges at 15 watts. It's also the same as the new Qi standard coming out. And 15 watts is pretty good. It's not the fastest, but I think it is not feeling painfully slow anymore. Now, if you think about cable charging, USB-C doesn't actually change anything in that regard. It can charge at 27 watts for this device, the max size device, and the Lightning cable could do that as well. It is slightly less fast for non-max device. I think it's like 24, 25 watts. But again, same thing for USB-C versus Lightning. No change there. The other thing that you can do is, of course, plug into more accessories a lot easier because it has a USB port. Now, I've tested this a little bit, like this microphone that I'm using. I can plug into this phone with a little USB-C dongle, and it just works. I think that's cool. It's not immediately useful to me, but it is cool. One use case that I do look forward to using is I have a dash cam in my car that records an SD card slot. So if I have a little USB SD card reader, I can, if I'm in an accident, I can pop that into my phone. I can save that footage, put that up in the cloud for whatever reasons I need it. I think that's neat because I couldn't really do that easily before. But otherwise, it's nice. It's nice for the future going forward, but it doesn't really impact me right now. So cool. USB-C, good. Glad they did it. Can't be too excited about it, unfortunately. Okay, those are the 4 things I want to touch on for the iPhone 15 Pro. So just to review in reverse order and also the order of least impact to most, USB-C, because is a good change. It's probably not going to impact people much at this stage, but good for the future. So that's in 4th place. Next up, in 3rd place, is the camera, which has gotten better as it does every year, but in weird ways, which are sometimes hard to explain to people. Now, I'm always glad for camera upgrades because even when I travel with a full camera, like half of my best shots come from my phone because I always have it with me. And sometimes I don't want to go on like a big hike with my camera and like lenses and stuff like that. But it is more complicated to talk about, and it is more complicated to even think about of which lens do I use if I want to maximize the size of my files and the quality of my files, or do I want to switch to a different lens on the phone so I can just step in closer to maximize that or not? It's kind of weird. Still good, and if you don't want to think about that stuff, you don't have to. It's still a great point and shoot camera, especially for just uploading to social. And in 2nd place, the action button, which is a great new feature. Really dig it. Love the customizability. I'm going to keep using this and keep tinkering with this over the next year plus. And I just wish they would move it to a better spot so I could actually reach it without doing a weird scramble with my hand. That would be great. If it did move, I think that would have taken 1st place for me. And in the top spot is the body of this thing, the actual industrial design. So in combination with the weight shavings, thanks to going to a titanium material, and the rounded, softened edges, not rounded at all, softened really, is just so comfortable to hold. And I think about when people say, you should spend money on a mattress because you spend a third of your life on there. Every second I'm holding this thing, I'm reminded of how good these decisions were in softening the edges, but still retaining some kind of edge to give you a nice solid grip on this, especially with bigger phones where you have to stretch a bit more to hold it properly. So I think this is great. Again, I'm not going to use a case on this because it's just so nice to hold in my hand. So that's my favorite thing about this. Okay, that's it. That is my review as a designer of what I like about this phone. There are some things that keep iterating over time that I'm just kind of not caring about anymore. Or else things like a slightly softened edge is actually firing me up for some reason. That's my review of the iPhone 15 Pro. Anyways, that's it. Thank you for watching. Hope you come back and watch whatever I got going on. Don't know what my next video is going to be, but it'll be something. So thanks again. Take care and goodbye.